G'day ladies and gentlemen, ScottyD here from the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, and welcome back for another installment in our From Sprue to Tabletop series. Alrighty ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ATWN for another installment in our From Sprue to Tabletop series, where we talk all things miniature hobbying side, whether that's building models, painting models, basing miniatures, conversions, and everything in between. And for today's installment, I'm actually going to be discussing something that's a little different that I've been through a few times in my hobbying journey, and I'm currently experiencing a little bit of at the moment that I'm wanting to share with you guys, which is actually hobbying burnout. And so we're going to talk a bit more about that in today's video and share a bit of my experiences and what I found have been maybe the cause of hobby burnout, as well as the effect that it can have on you, in addition to what causes it and how you can actually work out and outwork the solutions and resolve your hobbying burnout and getting through it. But before we jump into today's video, I want to thank everyone who has been supporting us here on YouTube. You guys watching our videos, liking, giving us comments as well. Really appreciate all of the engagement you guys do here on YouTube. Really appreciate that as we slowly inch towards getting ad revenue unlocked here on the ATWN's YouTube channel. We are slowly getting there, team. We're less than 60 subs away, which is absolutely phenomenal, and about 150 watch hours as well. So not too far to go whatsoever. And I thank everyone who has been supporting us on that journey. So let's jump into today's video. And to start off with, we're actually going to look at what hobbying burnout actually is. Now, hobby burnout is where you actually don't have the motivation to do any building or painting, or you actually aren't getting the enjoyment out of the hobby that you once did, which impacts upon how you actually engage with it in general. Now, whilst yes, hobbying burnout can be applied to the gaming side of miniature wargaming as well, for today's video, we're just looking at more the building and painting side of things for your hobbying experiences and what implications that has for this side of the hobby. Now, when you go through periods of hobbying burnout like I have, you'll find that you don't really have a lot of drive or energy or desire to sit down and work on any miniatures, whether that's building or painting or doing some basing on them. And so even if it's the current project you're working on, you might be halfway through and you're just like, well, I'm kind of getting sick of this. And I was streaming last Friday night, as I do with our Friday hobbying sessions. I was working on doing touch-ups on some Primaris infiltrators, and I had this exact feeling where I was like, I'm just burning out on doing these touch-ups, and I wasn't enjoying it, and it was taking a long time. And so really simple thing, I just realized I was using the wrong size brush. Once I changed to the right size brush I was wanting to use, I was able to actually fix the issue entirely and be able to speed things up a little bit. But that's just one small thing that can lead you into a little bit of a hobby burnout. So what can actually cause hobby burnout in the first place? What can lead you to not enjoying, building and painting miniatures like you once used to? Now, the reason that you could go through hobbying burnout could be a number of different reasons. It's really centered around what you're doing for your hobbying, where you're doing your hobbying, where your setup is, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. And really those different questions is something that we're going to address in both the reasons why you might be experiencing hobby burnout, but also the ways that you can resolve those issues as well. Now, as I am saying this, it's not going to be an exhaustive list of all the different reasons as to why you might be experiencing hobbying burnout. Of course, this is more just the hobby related side of hobby burnout. There could be other things going on outside of your hobby life that can actually be impacting your hobby time and lead you to having hobbying burnout as well, that I will share a bit of an example of later on in today's video. So the first and probably likely the biggest cause, in my personal opinion, for hobbying burnout is just not enjoying the time that you're spending doing hobbying, how you have compared in the past to, maybe months ago you were smashing out progress and you were super stoked with the projects you were working on and the units you were finishing and such. Whereas now you might be feeling bogged down that you're just getting through line troops after line troops, character after character. There's no real diversity like I was. I've been working on Space Marines and Death Watch Space Marines quite consistently for the past few months, and I've been starting to feel that. So, we'll talk about a solution for that in a little bit. So it could be the miniatures that you've been working on, as I've said. You know, it could be the time it actually takes you to take those miniatures from being on the sprue to building them, to painting them, to basing them, to getting them fully ready to go for the tabletop. It could also be the colors that you're using, or the color scheme that you've come up with that you're wanting to use on these models. Maybe you just don't like the look of them. Maybe you're not happy with the painting quality that you've been able to achieve with them. There's a lot of things in this regard that can lead to hobby burnout. Now, the second can actually be the time that you spend on the hobby. Now, maybe you might only be able to spend maybe 1 or 2 hours a week painting, and you feel like you actually never get any miniatures fully completed because you are only able to spend 1 to 2 hours a week doing any hobbying. Or you might regularly spend 5, 10, maybe 15 hours a week at your hobbying desk working on your miniatures. Or, you know, you might be in the middle there where you're working about 5 to 10 hours a week on your miniatures. And then, you know, you're spending 1 or 2 evenings, maybe 3 evenings in a week where you do 3-hour sessions, for example. Or if you're spending a lot of time doing your hobby, saying that's your main thing every night, you might be working on, you know, the same model night after night after night, trying to get it to a certain level. That can definitely lead you to burnout if you're not really seeing the results that you're wanting after spending that much time, you know, 15, 18 hours in a week doing that hobbying. Now, the third item that could lead you to hobbying burnout is to do with your hobbying space. Maybe you need to set up your hobby space and pack it down every time you want to build or paint any miniatures, or you might actually have a limited space where your hobby setup actually is, which can result into it being cluttered quite quickly with everything that you need to use for the models that you're working on, or the various projects. Maybe you've got an airbrush station as well as your painting station, as well as all your paints and everything. It can become quite cluttered quite quickly. Or maybe your hobby space is just in general disorganized. Maybe you're just a disorganized person in general, and you know, maybe that causes you a bit of anxiety around that when you go to your hobby desk to sit down and do some hobbying. And maybe you're not able to find the items that you need when you are wanting to use them on the miniatures you are working on. And the fourth reason could be your motivation as to why you're sitting down to actually do some hobbying, to do some building, to do some painting. If you're more of a gamer than you are a hobbyist, it's actually quite likely that you don't necessarily fully enjoy painting and building miniatures compared to how much enjoyment you get from playing the game. Or it could be how you're choosing to paint the miniature. Maybe you're using traditional opaque acrylics rather than maybe using speed paints, or maybe you're using the wrong size brushes for the areas of detail that you're wanting to work on. Maybe, you know, if your base coat's using a really fine detail brush when you should be using a much larger brush for a larger area. Things like that, you know, or whether you're looking to get your miniatures to just a tabletop standard and you're not happy with your tabletop standard, or if you're looking to do the best that you can with each of your miniatures and it's just taking a lot of time to get them there, much like our previous point. Now, any of these reasons, or a combination of a few of these reasons, could lead to why you're experiencing hobby burnout. And there are more reasons, of course, than what I've listed, as I've said. And to be honest, going through hobbying burnout is something that is completely normal to experience and go through, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. There's no issue to turn around to your friends and go, hey, I'm just struggling with a hobby for a little bit. I'm struggling to sit down and enjoy painting, or I'm struggling to enjoy building. And, you know, talking with your friends about that could be one way you actually figure out what's actually going on, why it's happening, and could help to you finding a solution. But I understand sometimes you mightn't recognize it as that, and so you might not know what's going on, or maybe there's other factors in your outside life that are impacting and not allowing you maybe to spend as much time hobbying as you want. Or, you know, maybe it's a bit of an escapism for you. I know it certainly is for me and a lot of other people, but also that can be a really bad thing if you spend too much going down into your hobby as a you know, and escaping from your everyday life in it consistently. Now, with that all said, it can be a bit of a weight if you do know that it's hobby burnout, but it's not a bad thing to admit, because honestly, the first step to fixing any problem is admitting that there is one. And I've been through hobby burnout multiple times, and I've come back and I've figured out ways to be able to ensure that I don't go through those same issues that I have previously. And so once you've actually identified what might be causing your hobbying burnout, you can actually start to work on resolving the root cause of the hobby burnout for you. Now, the following solutions, as I said at the start, these are just possible suggestions that may help with your hobby burnout, many of which I've personally used when I've been going hobbying burnout, but also, you know, there are other ones where I haven't necessarily needed to go through it. And so, you know, that's something to bear in mind. And I do share other ideas that I have not experienced, but I've heard others through podcasts, through YouTube videos talking about as well. But there are also going to be a lot more solutions than just the ones that I'm going to talk about and share with you guys that you can use to help deal with your hobbying burnout. So say, for example, you're not enjoying how you're hobbying. Maybe instead of, you know, say you work in large batches of miniatures, maybe, you know, say 10 to 20 models at a time, and you just find yourself getting bogged down in those miniatures, maybe reduce your batch size down, maybe work in batches of no more than 5 models at a time, which is something I personally do. I've gone through hobby burnout where I've gotten bogged down in a unit of 10 Dactyl Marines, and it has just been such a slog to get through them that, you know, I got burnt out quite quickly halfway through. Sure, I split them up into 5s at that point. And so since then, I've actually really focused on working on 5 models at most at a time. So then you're able to actually go, okay, cool, I get everything done on these 5 models, but I actually get a sense of accomplishment by just finishing 5 models, which then you can use to gain some momentum and go, okay, cool, no, now that I've got these guys done, I can actually continue working on the next 5 and then the next 5. And before you know it, you've gone through the 20, maybe a lot quicker than what you would have if you were working on the 20 in a single batch. So then, you know, it stops you getting bogged down, and it may end up with you getting through your miniatures a lot quicker. Or if you're not enjoying the miniatures that you're actually working on, maybe pick up a brand new kit that might be something that you wouldn't normally work on, or something that you really have like always wanted to paint up and work on for maybe a new army that you're looking to start in the future. And instead of doing your regular project for a bit, maybe build this model, paint them up, and get them to full completion before you actually go back to your other projects. More often than not, this is actually a very common practice used by miniature painters who are feeling burnouts, and it's commonly referred to as a palette cleanser project. Like for myself, you know, you might be able to make out the details, but on my shelf right now, I've got 12 Warriors of Rohan ready to go for when I am ready for a palette cleanser. They're zenithalled, they're going to be painted up very differently to the way that I would paint any other miniatures compared to my Space Marines or my Necrons or a few other projects I've got on the go. So, you know, having that kind of project that is very different to what you would work on normally does really help in that sense. Now, if the reason that you're struggling with hobby burnout is because of the amount of time that you work on your miniatures, whether it's the lack of time that you have to be able to put into them, or you find yourself maybe spending too much time, maybe you're spending that 15 to 21 hours a week, hobbying 3 hours a night, you know, and you're getting burnt out because of how much time you are spending on the hobby, there are some simple solutions to each side of that coin. If lack of time is a source of your hobby burnout, then maybe try to commit working on your miniatures for just 1 hour a night, 7 hours a week. And then what you can do is combine that with only working in small batches of miniatures, up to 5 models per batch. During this time, during this 1 hour, you want to be fully focused in. Maybe take 10 minutes beforehand, get set up, get the paints you need. Maybe grab 1 to 3 paints at most, being the 3 paints, and aim to get those colors all painted up on your miniatures within that 1 hour. And you'll actually be amazed at how much progress you will make by using this method in, you know, relatively short amount of time as well. Now, however, if you've got the opposite problem that you're spending way too much time building and painting miniatures, you know, it's a bit of an escape for you from maybe your job or whatever else is going on in your life, then maybe try the opposite. Maybe limit yourself to doing maybe 1 hour a night instead of 3, or maybe pick a couple of nights of the week where you spend, you know, a few hours, say that 3 hours, maybe it's 4. You know, Friday or Saturday night, you've got nothing on in the morning, so you can work from say 8 to 12 doing some hobbying. Pick 2 to 3 nights of the week, and then you're getting a decent amount of time hobbying in as well. But it's not what you're doing every night. So by doing this, it means you're actually going to have some free time to spend with your friends and family. You might want to get some games in if you have time, fit in other areas of your life that you enjoy, experience some other hobbies maybe, or things that interest you. You know, for example, I'm married, so I've got a wife and a son that I love spending time with. You know, I have friends that I catch up with from time to time as well, whether that's from church or the gym, or through wargaming and getting a game in, or doing a gaming day with some mates. I also go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week as well. I spend, you know, hour to hour and a half at the gym during those times, and you know, it's a good break, and I look after my body, and it also helps my mental health as well. In addition to also doing 2 hobbying streams a week over on our Twitch channel, where I'm doing about 5 to 7 hours worth of hobbying every week, with some additional time spent doing video content, like for example, for this series, for Sprue to Tabletop specifically, where, you know, we're working on models. I'm showing you how to do various things, you know, different painting techniques, how to go about painting models, basing, all this fun stuff. We've got some really cool stuff in the works that I'm slowly chipping away at as well. And so by doing some of these additional things outside of the hobby, this can actually lead you to finding your enjoyment of building and painting miniatures return, because it's not the only thing that you're spending your time on or with throughout your week. It means you've got something to look forward to. You know, you get to your Friday and you know, sweet, I'm going to sit down for 3 hours tonight and I'm going to work on some hobby. I've got this unit that I've been really looking forward to painting and getting completed. And, you know, I reckon I might get there this Friday night. And so it leads to this motivation. It leads to this excitement of you enjoying it. And, you know, there's other things you can do. Jump on a Discord call with some mates, hang out for a few hours and such as well. Now, if you find that the reason because of your hobby burnout is your hobby space, this one can be a bit more difficult to work out just because it is a physical situation. Now, if your hobbying space needs to be easily packed up when you are done and put away in kind of this small area, maybe look into a portable hobby station solution that you can utilize to be able to set up your hobby station really quickly and pack it up when you need to quite quickly. And there's a lot of different ones out there, but personally, I actually use KRYDRUFI. Now, this is what I've purchased recently, and this is what I actually use when I travel away for work. And these guys are the sponsors of today's video. Now, recently, I did purchase my KRYDRUFI standard hobby station to take with me when I go away for work down to Canberra. And I actually managed to fit all the paints that I needed, the brushes and the miniature stands, into these 2 sections on there. And as you see on screen, that's what they all pack into. And that's what it looks like when it's all expanded out as well. Now, this does have 2 different compartments for your water, and they've got silicone pads at the bottom there that you're able to clean your brushes on if you're doing like watercolors or more heavier paints, oil paints and such there as well. But also these 2 bottom pieces are actually wet palette holders. And so if I can actually pull this off, you've got your wet palette pads on top and the wet palette is on the inside. Now, I've actually had this wet palette sealed since I returned from Canberra last week from my recent work trip, and there is no moldy smell. It is an airtight seal when you compact this down. And the wet palette is actually a 5 centimeter thick sponge. So it means it holds the water for a lot longer than what the 3mm to 2mm ones do as well. So definitely recommend checking these guys out. They've also got your brush clips in there as well that you're able to put your brushes into. You can actually clip them onto the outside instead. These compartments also come out so you can have up to 4 water cups in there, and they've got that handy holster in the center there that you're able to pick it up and hold it by as well. So if you do want to check these guys out, we do have a link for these guys in the description below. And if you do choose to purchase any of their products, you will get a 15% discount by using our link. And they've got loads of different options, whether that's the ultimate version, which has got a lot more packed into it, or the standard version like I've got, to suit the needs that you're looking for your hobbying station. Now, in addition to the compact hobbying station, you want to find a spot in your home to be able to store your excess paints, as well as the miniatures that you aren't working on, until you've completed the ones that you've currently got connected to your portable hobby station. Maybe you don't necessarily fit them in the KRYDRUFI one, for example, but maybe you've got like a small hobby case that you're able to pack away with your hobby station so you can pull them out. And maybe that's where you keep your current project and your upcoming projects as well. Now, if you do have limited space and you do find it consistently getting cluttered, that you're able to have a permanent setup, but it's in a small space, maybe the best thing to do is to relatively frequently, maybe once a fortnight, maybe once a month, depending on how quickly it gets cluttered, is doing something I like to refer to, and a few others refer to it as this as well. I'm not the person who came up with this phrasing, but resetting the mechanism. This is where basically you pack up all of the paints, all the miniatures, and all the other items, as well as clean up your hobbying area, throw out any rubbish, and just do a general clean of the space. Then, in a similar way to the previous possible solution, only grab out the paints you're going to use for that session, and grab out the miniatures that you're wanting to work on, so you don't have everything out that you're wanting to use or that you're going to need for these models, especially if you're only doing like 1 hour of hobbying a night and you're only up to the base coats. You don't want to have the washes out ready to go unless you are semi-confident that you're going to be able to use those washes in your current session. Now, if you find that it's more of an organizational issue where you can't find what you want to use when you want to use it, the best solution is getting fit for purpose storage solutions and applying consistent organizational patterns and processes, and labeling your boxes, drawers, storage tubs, cupboards, etc., storage boxes for your minis and such, your carry bags as well, for what you've got stored and where. This will make it a lot easier to find what you need in your hobby space when you need it. Now, for example, behind me, once again, I do have some paint racks just down here where I've actually got all of my paints assorted by color in terms of dark in that color range down to light in sequence. So I start dark on the left, lightest on the right. But the only exceptions to these is being my airbrush paints, any technical paints, as well as shades and washes and contrast paints, where I keep those colors together instead of keeping them with their color spectrums, because they are of a different style of paint. I don't want to necessarily get them mixed up, pull it out accidentally. And when I'm expecting an opaque acrylic and I'm getting, my Mephiston red, for example, instead of Flesh Terror red that I'm wanting to use as contrast, it's not going to go well for what I'm wanting to use. So I like to keep those particular paints separate. Now, if the fourth reason of your hobby burnout is the source of why you are doing your hobbying, there's a couple of ways that you can combat that. If you're someone who prefers to play with fully painted armies and you find yourself constantly playing with unpainted or unfinished miniatures, then maybe something you could do is complete the units to a tabletop standard rather than trying to get them to the finished standard that you want them to be at when you are doing your painting. And there's absolutely nothing stopping you going back to them after you've got the entire army up to that tabletop level to actually go, okay, cool, I'm going to paint in the details, I'm going to do that edge highlighting, I'm going to do the faces, and spend that time to get them to that above tabletop level that you are wanting to aim for. Now, if it is more because you enjoy the game side of the hobby rather than building and painting, maybe look into ways that you can efficiently build and paint your army. Maybe you do an assembly line. Maybe you do look into using an airbrush. Maybe you look at Zenithal priming with speed paints, contrast or army painter speed paints to do things. Maybe you look into colored rattle cans if you're working with Space Marines and you just want to paint all the small details and get the armor done in one hit. And there's a lot of other techniques you can look at using for your painting processes to speed them up. And sometimes I also find that a deadline for a tournament or a gaming day can help with this as well. Or if you're someone that you're just not particularly interested in the building and painting side of the hobby, which is completely fair. There are people out there who prefer just to play the game and enjoy the game more than the hobbying side of things. Then maybe you look at going down the commission painting route and commissioning someone to actually build and paint the army for you might be the right way to go. However, be warned with this that it does cost a significant amount of money depending on what your painting standard you're wanting. If you're wanting something tabletop level, it's going to be a lot cheaper than something if you're wanting it at a higher above tabletop parade ready level, maybe even heavy metal level, for example. It's going to cost a lot more to get those kind of levels. So that's something you're going to want to bear in mind when you do look to go down this route. Now, with all this being said, these are just a few of the possible solutions to hobbying burnout. And nothing to say if any of these don't work for you, that there is nothing wrong with having another solution that might work, discovering it on your own. And if you do, let us know down in the comments. I would love to hear any other solutions you guys have found to your hobbying burnout. And if you don't find that anything really helps, to be honest, there's nothing wrong with taking a step back and stepping away from the hobby for a little bit and spending your time elsewhere. Now, I personally took 18 months off from the hobby itself after I'd finished off a stint of working at my local game store, as I just found that talking miniatures and seeing people playing games and talking hobbying all day, giving people advice day in, day out, 40 hours a week consistently, really did take its toll on me and drained out a lot of my hobbying passion for actually painting, actually building miniatures and stuff after a decent while. So, you know, I took a bit of a step back. And so instead what I did, I started playing Magic the Gathering for about 12 months or so, you know, which I still thoroughly enjoy now. I do play Commander quite frequently with some friends when I get the opportunity to do so. And I've got decks and I enjoy building Commander decks, and I find Commander is just a great fun format to have fun with a lot of friends at the one time as well. But at the end of the day, this is a hobby. It's something that you should be able to enjoy in your spare time, and it shouldn't be a burden on your mental or physical health, and it shouldn't be a burden on your mind being like, oh, I need to get this unit painted to get this army ready for the next tournament. If that's kind of your thoughts, maybe realign your thoughts and realign your goals with where you're wanting to be and what you're wanting to do. Maybe it is that you just go, I'm going to play the tournament, but my army is only going to be a tabletop level. It's not going to be a parade ready level, or, you know, the above tabletop level. Or maybe it's not even finished at all. Maybe I just give up the battle ready points and I still play. Things like that is something that, you know, you need to go through yourself. It's not something that I can say, yes, that is the definitive answer, whilst there are things here in this video that will help. Again, it's down to yourself looking introspectively and figuring out what's going on with your hobbying burnout, why you're feeling burnt out on the hobby, and trying some things to figure it out. Maybe the first solution you find doesn't help. There's nothing stopping you trying another solution and trying multiple solutions until you figure it out. So that actually about covers all that I wanted to share with you all about hobbying burnout, and how, you know, you can identify it in your own hobbying life, how you can identify the root cause of the problem, and how you can potentially remedy it in your hobbying life, and you know, when you do go through it yourself, so that you're able to come out the other side continuing to enjoy this wonderful hobby of ours. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope that you guys do find this informative and helpful. If you do experience hobbying burnout, I know some of you might be newer to the hobby and it's maybe something you haven't experienced yet, or you might be a veteran of the hobby and you've been through this multiple times. And if you are going through hobbying burnout, I hope this does help you resolve that within yourself as well, and find out what the root cause of your burnout is and remedying that so you can get back to enjoying this wonderful hobby. Now, if you did enjoy today's video, feel free to leave it with a like if you have any feedback, or as I said, any other remedies that you might have found to your own personal hobbying burnout when you've been battling it and how you've dealt with it. Feel free to let us know down in the comment section below. And if you haven't already and you do want to catch more content from us here at the ATWN, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, so you can be notified as to when we are releasing more content here on the YouTube channel as well. And if you do want to hang out with me as I do hobbying sessions, we also do tournament previews and live tournament coverage, not just here on YouTube, but also over on our Twitch channel. Then head over to Twitch, follow us at the Australis TWN channel there, where you can catch us live throughout the week, every week, where we're doing hobbying sessions, tournament previews, and that tournament coverage of the Australian Warhammer 40k tournament scene. And before we wrap up for today's video, I really want to thank all of our subscribers, whether it's Twitch subscribers, YouTube members, or Ko-Fi members. You guys really do assist us with being able to get business costs covered and be able to invest in more gear and more exciting things for tournament coverage of the Australian Warhammer 40k scene as we are going as well. And it is September over on Twitch. We've got some goals for that as well if you do want to contribute towards that, and some fun stuff which you can find out in our Discord as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.